Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to make a video talking about, answering all the big questions that I've gotten about Warlock over the last week or two. Crafting, Sims, Mythic Plus, talents, all that stuff. I want to put it in one big video here and hopefully help you guys out. It might be a little unclear on certain things heading into, week 3 or 4, whatever it is, of patch 11.1. Also, by the way, when it comes to this year, we're pushing for 100k subs in the channel, so if you aren't subbed or can find it in your heart to do so, hey, I would greatly appreciate it. But thank y'all for your support the last few weeks while I wasn't here at the Race World First and stuff. We're back though. Streams begin tomorrow, or I guess today when this video is coming out. We have a lot to get into. So just jumping right into all this. Now, the first thing I want to hit on here is actually going to be crafting. Mainly like your embellishments, what items you should be crafting. Week 1, well, I guess second spark, third spark, so on and so forth. Now, optimally, if you can, you want to make an item with Ascension on it, the same as last year. Darkmoon Deck Ascension, the embellishment, and your second item is going to be a Nerubian or Writhing Armor Banding embellishment as well. Now, the problem with Ascension is you can only put this on a weapon. It only goes on a main hand or an offhand or a staff if you craft one. Keep in mind, staves cost 2 sparks, a main hand costs 1, an offhand costs 1. Now, long term, you're going to want to be playing basically a crafted offhand and a main hand at 678 from the raid or M+, whatever, what have you. I've opted to make a main hand at 675, which is 3 levels below Mythic, max Myth track, because I opened this offhand in my vault week 1. Now, long term, I'll shift to a crafted main or offhand here with the Ascension embellishment on it, because main hands have more secondary stats and main stats than offhands do. So theoretically, I want this at 675 being crafted with Ascension on it, and I want this at 678 from the raid, or some M+, one-hand weapon, whatever it is. But week 1, week 2, whatever you can get, make you good use of it. There isn't a big difference here either way. If you can get Ascension like crafted on your other piece you didn't open in your vault, for example, once again, I opened this, so I made a main hand, definitely worthwhile. Second piece as well, you're playing Writhing Armor Banding again. We were given a second spark like last Friday when the bug was fixed or whatever in game. I made it on a belt. A lot of people have opted to, before the spark, keep a pair of bracers around, like this one here from last season, and play it. Also, I made a belt. I had a low eye level item. Typically, you don't want to make it on a tier piece like gloves, helm, chest, so on and so forth. Belt, boots, bracers, even cloak, depending what you have, are also solid options when it comes to crafting. Now, as far as secondary stats are concerned on these items, it's going to be based on your own character. If you want, you can just go to raid bots and run a sim. Here's the main page, Droptimizer, click this, and just go down to professions. Whatever eye level you want to make it at, you can select different stats here, put in your sim, and it will spit out basically, the highest moving pieces. You can compare different sims, different stats, like crit haste, crit mastery, crit verse, so on and so forth. I do not recommend doing a stat weight sim for this. Once again, it's there as a tool. Even Raidbot says, though, it's not worth doing because trying to compensate for the highest 2 stats you see here may skew things a bit when it comes to other things also. So the best answer overall is going to just be to straight up run a Droptimizer sim for professions. You can run stats under here, figure out what you want to make, and go from there. Now, if you don't have a weapon or you can't craft one, you didn't open a main hand or an offhand, and you don't have 2 sparks to make a staff, whatever, your other options for embellishments are going to be so this is Wowhead. This is the guy that I write. It's universal for embellishments here. Your other options are going to be Focusing Lens, which does damage in a single target, or Dawn Thread and Dusk Thread Lining. Dusk Thread gives verse. Dawn Thread gives crit when you're above 80% health. Now, Elemental Focusing Lens does indeed scale with item level. It does more damage the higher the item level piece you put it on is. Other embellishments like Ascension, Dawn Thread, Dusk Thread, they don't do that. So Focusing Lens has gained a bit more value this patch than it had last patch, but the problem is that it is single target based. This is like Shadow Flame embellishment from Dragonflight. It procs in single target. There's no AoE implications comparatively to like Ascension giving, AoE value if it stacks in M+, or in raid if you're AoEing multiple things. To a similar extent, Dawn Thread and Dusk Thread, I want to call it Dusk Weave for some reason, both do also give, universal relevancy in single target and AoE. So personally, if it were me, I haven't run sims my own character in the last few days, but if I didn't have Ascension, if I didn't get a main hand or an offhand in the vault, or just wasn't going to make a staff, I'd then craft something else with like Dawn Thread or Dusk Thread on it. And whatever that is sort of up to you. I think you can put Dawn Thread and things on rings as well. Whatever you want for the most part. And that's sort of that. Moving on, number 2, Cyrce's Circlet, whatever it's called, this thing. When do you replace this thing right here? I will say when I've run my own sims, for Affliction, this is actually simming higher than playing the 2 rings that I have right here, which are going to be a 668, let's just go full screen here, a 668 Ring of Perpetual Conflict, and a 658 Blood Oath Sigma. They're both double gemmed, so on and so forth. Right around the time you begin hitting myth, like higher end hero, depending on stats, like myth rings around 665, give or take, is what I've seen begin to pull ahead for demo and destruction. Affliction in my sims still does want the signet over playing, conflict and Blood Oath Signet. So you're going to want to run your own sims. This is going to be a thing that you really need to do on your own. If you don't want to, you can use a general rule of thumb of like just saying, hey, if you have, I guess, like double myth rings, you cannot play it, but something like that's going to depend a lot on your own gearing, what you have secondary stat wise, so on and so forth. But around like the myth level, I've seen is when, it pulls ahead playing, non-Cyrce, just double like, stat rings for demo and destro, at least for myself. Once again, might vary for you, but that does reflect what we've seen in sims for the most part over the past couple weeks leading up to the patch, so on and so forth. So I'm happy to take it off. Happy it's gone from me, but if I'm playing AF anywhere, still got it on. And I'm looking good also with my transmog here. So number 3 is trinkets. Now, when it comes to trinkets, this is Blood Mallet, link up here, bloodmallet.com, very easy. Blood Mallet. Now, you are going to run, some trinkets might be a bit more valuable for you than others, depending on your own character, your sims, and so forth. Off the bat here, this is bait. Don't play this thing. I mean, if it drops for you, whatever, it's fine, but like, so Brutalizer drops in Cinder Brew Meadery. It spawns a barrel that you have to hit with a spell, like, a Conflagrate for Destro, Wither if you're AF, or whatever you're playing, something that can break the barrel, and then it will do damage to mobs around the barrel. It's nearby enemies. The barrel has to spawn near your target, so if it gets pulled away from the barrel spawning, it's basically irrelevant. At the same time, you're pulling damage off of the boss, whatever you're hitting, to pop the thing, the Brutalizer, whatever it's called. You can make a macro to have your pet attack it, have your pet chomp the barrel. It's just a pain, honestly. There are better options out there. With like the RNG of it, mobs being pulled away, taking damage off the boss, and just in general, it's just annoying. I think it's sim bait in a sense. We've seen it before. This is, I'd say overall, sim bait, even though it does sim relatively high here. Now, as far as like trinkets you want, Signet of the Priory, talked about it before. This is a very good trinket. It drops from Sacred Flame. This is a great dungeon to farm. You've literally got 5 items in here for Warlock that can drop 3 bosses, 1, 2, 3, 5. If you need a good on-use trinket, go in here and get one. I got one. I maxed it out. It's very, very strong. Highest secondary stat, baseline intellect, 2-minute cooldown, and it also buffs other trinket wearers that are wearing Signet in the party. Very, very strong trinket to have around. It even beat out Myth Ruby when I opened it in my vault today. Didn't take the Ruby. I've got a Signet. Fast dungeon to farm comparatively also to Theater of Pain, being 5 bosses, a pain to farm in general, and like a slew of items, 15 whatever it is. I don't want to deal with this. So if you don't have one, Priory is where you want to be for for on-use based trinkets. As far as other effects are concerned, House of Cards, also very good from the raid. It is indeed better than Signet. You can see Signet at 665 here, 7.9. Right here, 8.4. Very, very good. This drops from One Arm Bandit. Everybody wants his trinket. It's very good. Adds you strength and int, but strong for sure. When it comes to equip-based trinkets, however, you've got Mugsy's Moxie Jar, or Mug's Moxie Jar, and then Eye of Kazan. And to clarify, this is AF Sims. You can change whatever you want up here. Here's Demo. It's a little different. Destro, all the same, but thankfully, trinkets are pretty universally just good for specs, right? Now, when it comes to Eye of Kazan, it's Mastery with a stacking effect that gives you a certain amount of your primary stat, but also, when it hits max stacks, you will indeed gain an effect as well. Let me pull it up in game here. That does damage when you're at max stacks to your target. So, Empower the Eye, gaining intellect for up to 20 times. It also decays rapidly upon leaving combat. When you leave combat, this thing drops fast. So in M+, it loses a lot of value. You're not just in constant combat. The stacks drop quickly. When it's fully empowered, though, the Eye instead deals 112 fire damage to enemies or heals allies for whatever. It just does damage. Good intellect stacks. It's a solid trinket for sure. One that I would play in the raid, pretty much when you're in constant combat. Very, very good. Similar to Spymaster. When you're in combat for a longer period of time, you can accrue more stacks. It becomes more and more powerful over the course of a fight, right? Because you're getting that big intellect stack at 20, and then beginning to do fire damage as well when you're at max stacks. So when it comes to like raiding and things, I have Kazan, very, very good. M+, though, not necessarily as good, which is where Mug's Moxie Jar comes into play. Baseline intellect. A chance to go into a frenzy, gaining crit, casting more spells does indeed increase your crit. They changed this to occur once every 0.75 seconds. It's not one, because in game, hot effects and dot effects, like Affliction, also increase the stat count of the crit as well. That was also hot fixed before the raid came out. So also, just a strong trinket in general. When you're in M+, I would play Mug's Moxie Jar over something like I have Kazan. Now, both are, I mean, if you have I and no jar, hey, it's still a good trinket. I still play M+ in general, but that's where I want to be. If you don't have either of these, I'm still playing a Changeling from Tyrann Scythe, right? Other good options are Carved Blaziken Wax. This is from Darkflame Cleft, from Blaziken, end of the run, whatever. Reverb Radio, from Rick Reverb in the raid, also pretty good. Just Intellect Haste, very solid. The Sussy Energy Drink. This is from Delves. If you can get it at a high level, great, crank it. At the same time, Funhouse Lens, also pretty good there too, also from Delves. Things like Candle Confidant, or sort of whatever, it's fine. Entropic Ardent Core is from Rookery, albeit probably easier to run than Darkflame Cleft, and they're both like relatively similar. At max hero, they're sitting at 7.04 on Candle versus 6.47 here. I'd play one of these two. I try and farm Wax or Ardent Core if I didn't have like Jar Eye. I can't get these either. So, sort of up to you. But trinket-wise, I mean, long-term, we're looking at House of Cards as our unused trinket. And Muggs' Moxie Jar / I have Kazan when it comes to rating M+, so on and so forth. But at the same time, acquiring a Mythic House of Cards is much more difficult, I would say, than acquiring a Mythic Signet. And depending on the spec, honestly, Signet might even seem a little higher for you. So run your own sims, but that is what it looks like when it comes to trinkets. The last thing here when it comes to gearing, for the most part, is when to break your 4-piece from last tier. Most of us probably have already, but if you haven't for whatever reason, you should sim it for your own character, because once again, sims, everyone's gear changes. When you get new 2-piece, break it. Play the new 2 set. You can play 2 and 2, like 2-piece from last tier, 2-piece from this tier, until you get your new 4-piece. At this point, we should have, I believe, 3 catalyst charges, I'm pretty sure. I spent 1, and I should have 2, I think. Pretty sure. Holy moly, it's rigged. I should have 2. Yeah, I do. So you can basically make 3-piece regardless now. Demo's tier set is a very, very strong game when it comes to M+, even in single target. It's the strongest one that we have by a long shot for our 2-piece and 4-piece. AF is very good in spread council cleave, like in One Arm Bandit, things in procs on ads, at times in plus. Destra's over nerfed is what it is. But yeah, if you're looking to like break your tier set and aren't sure from last tier, maybe it's an alt or whatever, when you get new 2-piece, depending on eye level, but just for the most part, you break it with a new 2-piece. And that is that. Now, the next thing I want to get into here is Mythic Plus. Why are we seeing a lot of Demonology in M+? Why aren't we seeing as much Destro? Where's AF at? This happens typically every season with the current tuning of Demonology and how Destro functions comparatively to AF and different damage profiles. We harp on this a lot on stream and things. Damage profiles matter. They're very important. Even like when it comes to Sims. There's Sims and there's actuality, right? This is a great example of damage profiles being more relevant in certain key settings. Now, I'm going to filter by Warlock here for M+ dungeons all this season, and you're going to see a good bit of Destro here, right? However, if you look as well, these are also higher keys to be fair, but this does trickle down. There's a point to this, I promise you. There's a bit of Demo. A little bit of Demo here. There's an AF log right here. Demo, some Destro, a little bit of AF mixed in, but there's a mix of multiple specs here. Now, number one, I think Affliction is a bit underrated in M+ right now. It has exceptionally strong stat cleave burst. If you're getting Soul Rot, all your CDs together with a new tier set, you can spread on simple afflictions. You have Focus Malignancy proccing on everything, or just being active on everything because UA is being spread. It blasts under CDs. Now, unfortunately, if you go to the next pack, it died so fast from your CDs with no damage at all, like no Soul Rot or anything else, you do tank damage, which is, issue 1827 with Affliction. But point being, it still has very, very strong AoE burst. The buffs helped a bit in single target. It's still a little lacking, but it's better than what it was. If you want to play it, I wouldn't fault you there. Now, the big thing here, though, is our spend. Look at that. Holy moly. When it comes to Demonology and Destruction, we've harped on it a lot. I'll talk about it again here. Destro has a very, very, very strong AoE profile. We've seen it in multiple tiers or seasons where you can pull big packs, AoE them all down, get really good, just mass brain of fire value with Inferno. If you last season, right? You're playing Kata now because you have Hellcaller applying mass withers with Malevolence, getting multiple wither stacks, big wither damage, rain of fire cast, which fuel more Blackened Soul stacks. Destro has that same profile. In mass AoE, Kata's not capped. It applies a million withers, Malevolence, bunch of shard generation, and throw big damage out. It was changed week 1 of the patch to tick every 3 seconds, not 2, wither that is, so less shard gen, but the damage of wither, Blackened Soul, were both buffed considerably. It feels a bit worse to play, less shard gen. I wouldn't mind it being reverted and figuring out the tuning of it, but hey, it is what it is. But point being, we're seeing Destro more in higher keys, 12, 13, 14, 15 levels, right? When you're having, coordinated keys, you're pulling multiple packs together and AoEing them all down in a coordinated setting. I want to emphasize again, coordinated setting in higher keys. When it comes to like 4s and 5s and 6s, even 9s, 10s, 11s, when you're going in there and just blasting everything down, but not pulling multiple packs at once, or if you're pulling, just one pack at a time. Destro is not as good, in my opinion, most of the time, as Demonology. In uncoordinated groups or just groups that are pugging, which is totally fine, Demonology has a very strong, consistent profile. You've got Dreadstalkers every 20 seconds, Hand of Gul'dan every other cast, Demonic Strength, Fellstorm Cleave, Implosion. Your tier set is massive, right? The dog you proc does a lot of damage. It's very, very good with your 2 set and your 4 set. Very consistent damage as well. Timer being a minute is very, very strong. You can CD essentially every pack. Like how, it has a minute profile similar to AF with Soul Rot, but even without CDs, you've got so much just consistent cleave, stat cleave. It's very, very strong. And I would recommend playing Demonology when it comes to those mid-tier keys, even getting into 10s and 11s. Dungeons like Theater of Pain, for example, more single target-esque cryo-based ones. I'd probably just play Demo there in general because you just have a better profile. It's a bit more single target based. There's not as much mass cleave in every wing, just where it depends. There is a lot of Destro in Theater of Pain still too, but point being, you're seeing a lot of Destro because of that reason. It was played a lot during the Racer World first as well, from people doing keys on the side. It's more consistent. You don't have to pull around its cooldowns as much, right? It's just consistent, good damage profile. The longer the season goes on, though, you'll see more Destro. Higher keys, pulling multiple packs, having Destrolock's profile can make up a lot of ground and do a lot of damage other classes can't. So in high-end stuff, coordinated groups, bigger keys, you'll see more Destro. If you're an average player, or if you're like the average player, I should say, just plug and doing whatever, Demonology is more than fine, Ash more than fine, but that's why you're seeing Demonology more so than not. That's that. Now, shifting a bit more towards a raid-based setting here. When it comes to the raid, people have been asking a lot, why are some fights playing Mayhem, some fights are playing Havoc? And that is also a bit of damage profile, reasoning, right? I'm going to filter by Destro here for fights. We'll do Mythic is fine, no big deal. So when it comes to these fights, knowing the mechanics of these fights is important. Vexing the Gear Grinders, for example. The bikes that spawn in this fight that you kill die exceptionally fast, to the point where it's almost not even worth havocing the boss and trying to cleave these down. It's a chaotic cleave-based setting, which in those settings, often you see Mayhem played a good bit, right? Those settings, or in settings where you have consistent 2 targets, like Silken Court, you often saw Mayhem played. It has a pretty high uptime now. It was buffed in this patch. So those are the scenarios where you usually see Mayhem played, right? And for example, Vexy, Mayhem. I just filter by this actually. So this is easier. Let's do this. Pull this up. Average talents. Mayhem being played basically at every single key or parse when it comes to Vexy and the Gear Grinders, right? Havoc is a talent that very, very good. Duration increased from 12 to 15 this patch. But it's a talent that you want in more controlled cleave settings where you know okay, these ads are spawning here. I want to cleave these here. I want to have this controlled, precise, tactical cleave guaranteed every single ad wave or when I need this damage, right? If you're playing Mayhem on a fight like that, like Rick Reverb, for example, when bombs spawn, it might proc over and over. It might not proc at all. And in a progression-based setting, you want to have consistent, guaranteed cleave and damage profiles, which is why you see Havoc played in certain fights and Mayhem on others. So Vexy, big Mayhem fight. Cauldron of Carnage, for example, a pretty big Havoc fight. 1% played Mayhem. They're all playing Havoc. Mayhem doesn't even work here, FYI. So don't even play Havoc here. But also, there are 2 permanent targets here. However, Mayhem doesn't work on this fight. The range is too large. The radius between them is too large. And you can also just dance around and Havoc them a bunch. I will say if Mayhem worked here, you probably see Mayhem play. But it doesn't work here. So keep that in mind when it comes to Cauldron. A fight like Rick Reverb, for example. Pulling this up. Basically, all Havoc play. Now, in the long run, I'd be surprised, honestly, if Mayhem doesn't pull ahead of Havoc when it comes to like this fight. When the boss is dying faster, you can just maybe try and like, plan on a high rolling cleave value, because I mean Mayhem is a higher high end for sure if it procs back to back to back, but a lower low end when it doesn't proc at all. So, but in progression, in controlled cleave settings where you want that damage profile every wave, Mayhem, especially on the barrels that spawn way over there in the back of the room, is what you want on a fight like Rick Reverb. When it comes to sticks, I think it's mostly like just Mayhem cleave. You can go to Heroic for this stuff too. When it comes to Mythic on this fight, though, you'll see a mix of both. It's basically just on Heroic, all Mayhem. When it comes to Mythic, you might see more Mayhem play here. Actually, it's about to split. Yeah, this is what I was going to say. This is actually a great example. So if you're playing Destro on sticks, Mythic, like I am, and you're there for Bombshell Cleave, Territorial Bombshell Cleave, and you want that consistent controlled cleave, every single wave spawns in, I can go Havoc 2 Bombshells, blow them apart, get them out of the ground, good to go. That's great. That's the profile that Havoc brings. If you want just chaotic cleave, maybe it's up the whole fight, or excessive, maybe it's up for a while on ad waves, or maybe it procs on hyenas running around, you can play Mayhem. That's okay. But if you're in a progression-based setting where you want that consistent profile, whenever you hit the button, Havoc is where you want to be. When it comes to fights like Sprocketmonger, single target, one-arm bandit, Havoc fight. In prog. In farm, probably Mayhem. Mugsy, Havoc fight. Gallywix, we'll see where it goes, probably Havoc. But so that is why you're seeing a lot more Havoc play, or you're seeing some fights with Havoc play and some fights with Mayhem play. In the end, it's not too hard to break down if you know the fights mechanically and all that, but hopefully that helps answer y'all's questions, so on and so forth. Now, one final thing here when it comes to Channel Demon Fire versus Shadowburn. So I did run some destruction sims here. I will say that you can run your own sims if you want, totally up to you. Channel Demon Fire was simming higher for destruction coming into the patch by about 80k, give or take. This is the build that I simmed here. I also simmed a Shadowburn build, which is just what I'm playing in single target, even in cleave settings, right? I am playing Hellcaller in the sim whatever you want. If you want to play Diabolus in single target, it's okay too, just as an example. Right. I took these builds here. I think I was even playing an N+ build. It doesn't matter a whole lot, but I simmed them both. So here is my Shadowburn sim. I'm sitting at 1.967 with Shadowburn, no CDF, 1.99 essentially with Channel Demon Fire. The question is, why would you play Shadowburn in basically every setting when it comes to rating this tier? If we go by all bosses and Destro locks, I mean, you're looking at basically Shadowburn, which is this talent right here, everywhere. Why is everybody playing Shadowburn and not CDF if CDF is better? Because Shadowburn sims are a great tool, but they're sims and there's actuality. There's reality. The reality of it, CDF still sucks to cast. Just does. Faster cast time, but you still can't cast it on a move. It's still channeled. I think it's fun to hit, and plus it's cool. Extend your withers. I think it's a cool button to hit, but in the end, on these fights like Vexy, getting into later ones, Cauldron, constant movement, reverb, cleave setting, right? Where you want that Shadowburn snap cleave when those bombs spawn in sticks. You're moving all the time. Once again, Havoc fight. You want to be able to Havoc Shadowburns as well in this fight. Sprocketmonger, you're moving all the time on Sprocketmonger, right? Even in a single target fight. Finding time to plant and cast CDF doesn't really happen. You just hit Shadowburn and you run around, right? One-arm bandit, Mugs, Yellowbricks, all the same. Like Shadowburn might not sim as high when it comes to actual or sims, but in actuality, having those two charges of Shadowburn, having that movement that you can hit Shadowburn when you're moving is worthwhile. It is still worth hitting when it comes to single target, not by as much because Chaos Bolt was buffed, but it's still worth hitting. And that's why you're seeing it in basically every single parse. I can't even find a CDF parse here. It's all just Shadowburn for a reason. So hopefully that helps clarify as well. Heads up also, I'm updating the site tonight with talent builds for the website. Website for talent builds for Liberation of Undermine, M+, so on and so forth. So if you guys can check that out, kalamazi.gg. But yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. Wraps it up. Hopefully the video wasn't too long, and hopefully it helped answer the questions y'all might have had about lock stuff week 1 and week 2, heading into later weeks and all that. Like I said, I am back home from the Race World first. My voice is still sort of shot, but hopefully we're getting better. Should be a stream for Raid later on tonight, and yeah, I appreciate y'all's support during all of it. For those that haven't seen, patch 11.1.5 PTR is already here. It's been out for a few weeks. No lock changes or anything yet. Might not happen at all. Who knows? But we'll be getting into that soon. There's things to do. Honestly, 11.1.7 already hit internal PTR today. So we'll see. This raid being tuned in an interesting way. Hopefully there's some PTR stuff coming soon. But I'm excited for it. So Thanks for watching, guys. If you guys want any Week Wars add-ons, like always, links to Twitch, Patreon, website, all that up here, as well as down below in the description. And like always, a massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon for all support, y'all. Thank y'all just a million times. Like always, I greatly appreciate all of it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should also be a link as well, or up here, as well as down below in the description. So, honestly, when it comes to this tier, I wasn't even super surprised at how much play Warlock saw. I'll probably be making a video on that in a few days too, like recapping the raid, where we were right or wrong, and all that. But I think for the most part, we're sort of spot on, barring a couple things here and there. Might have missed some raid comp stuff, but you know, I'll get into that soon as well. Should be a fun video to make. So, all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. So if you like the video, hit the like and sub button below. It helps out a ton, and I'll see you all again soon on stream. Peace. Oh, TS, you signed the painting. You signed the painting. You see it right there? Yeah. Those of y'all that stuck around to end this video, thank you. Little special thing. You'll get to see. There it is. All right. GN. Peace.